Are we live? Yeah. Good afternoon. This Selwyn Township Regular Council meeting will come to order for Tuesday, April the 9th, 2024. We respectfully acknowledge that we are in the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so the council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to our community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please have that noted in the minutes. Our minutes of the meeting of March the 26th, 2024 are before us. Are there any errors or omissions? If not, can we please have someone move those minutes? Councillor Henry moving, Councillor Boyko seconding, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Any discussion out of the minutes? All right, we will move on. And our first is a staff introduction. And Robert Kelly, you'll be making that introduction.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Sanderson and Council. We'd like to take an opportunity to introduce our newest staff member, Jessica Barlow. She is taking the position of planning and bylaw and administrative assistant, covering mat leave contract. We're excited to bring her on board. She comes to us with well in excess of 10 years customer service experience, including some time with the municipality of Clarington, and she is, I think, going to be a great asset to our team.
Excellent. Welcome. Is there anything you would like to say?
No.
Okay. We'll be seeing you around the office, I'm sure. All right, thanks. So we do have a public meeting scheduled for 1:30, but we will come back to it at that time. We now have question period where there's 15 minutes, one question per person at a time on a rotating basis. And we have several that were sent in. And so I will have our clerk read each question, please.
Sure. The first question, pardon me, is from Ed Plexney. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. What is the long-term strategic, financial, and 25 and 20-year capital plan for operating the Lakefield Campground?
Thank you. The long-term plan for the campground was analyzed as part of the 2021 Lakefield Campground Utilization Study with the Council of the Day, endorsing the continued use of a campground with Orca as the operator. The study was completed because infrastructure replacements were needed. So before spending money on these improvements, the Council of the Day needed to decide whether to continue to have a campground or not. Our next question.
Next question is from Patty and Tom McAllister. When will Selwyn Township residents get to see the Lakefield Campground's 5-year and 20-year capital plan for development?
And the answer is this is a chicken versus egg scenario. The township only has cost estimates for the infrastructure work. Unless council gives direction to finalize the preparation of the tender package, we won't have an accurate cost for the infrastructure work. With an accurate cost, staff can prepare a long-term capital plan and include some recommended scenarios for council's consideration. To give an analogy, it would be like asking the bank to prepare a mortgage based on a pre-approved amount. The bank needs to know the actual mortgage value to give the customer scenarios on rates, term, and mortgage payments. We have our next question, please.
Yep. Next question is from Susan Twist. Is this area to be a commercial trailer park, or do we want to maintain it as a natural marshland?
And the answer is, as noted earlier, the previous council endorsed the continued use of the property to be used as a campground. In addition, the adjacent park, trail, beach, tennis courts, etc., are all being maintained for public use. Our next question.
Next question again is from Ed Polexny. What are the projected campground profits and capital repayment plan for the campground infrastructure capital investment required? Sorry, I'm not sure if I said that correct. Does this include recent capital investments in the campground, example, electrical upgrades, site expansion, docks, etc.?
And I'm going to turn this over to our treasurer, Elaine, to answer that question.
Thank you, Your Worship. So based on the agreement that's in place with Orca, we had about $144,000 in actual revenue that's expected for the first operating season. So that revenue is it offsets expenses in three general areas. So the first is the direct operating cost of the campground. So that's all direct costs related to the campground. So in 2023, that was about $27,500, which is higher than normal, but kind of expected given that it's a transition year. The second area would be reserve contribution. So in 2023, that was $45,000. And so that's for future capital needs at the point there at the campground. That's about $35,000 higher than what has historically been contributed before our most recent agreement with Orca. And the third is support of general parks. So the general parks department, and that's the operations for the whole township. That amount is approximately $71,500. And that's about $26,500 higher than the 2022 season. With respect to campground infrastructure needs, we haven't really had any significant electrical upgrades there to date. We did have approval last year from council for more typical maintenance type items as part of the transition. We haven't had any site expansions. We have definitely more properly delineated the campsites which are there. But in fact, we have a smaller footprint at the campground than was there prior to the Orca agreement. And we did provide some new docks, and these spaces are being managed by Orca and providing annual rental revenues. So as noted earlier by the mayor, a detailed repayment plan will be provided for council's consideration once council determines our next steps with respect to any other proposed investments.
Okay, thank you very much. And may we have the next question, please?
Yeah, the next question, there were actually two similar questions from Ed Polexny and Patty and Tom McAllister. So just trying to combine them into one. Why would the council recommend consultants be brought in at this stage when the projected campground profits and capital repayment plan for the campground infrastructure have not been disclosed?
Thank you. And Elaine answered the first question, noting that revenue is to be received from Orca from the 2023 operations will be $143,928. And he explained how this revenue would be used to fund direct costs, general parks operations for the whole township, and future capital needs. In terms of the capital replacement, this was also answered. Actual costs are needed to outline a recommended repayment plan. In order to determine these costs, the engineer needs to develop the tender package, and council needs to approve including these engineering costs in the budget. We'll move on to our next question, please.
Certainly. This is from Susan Twist. How do you justify the cost of more consultant fees at about $28,000 plus the high cost of infrastructure water, sewer, electrical systems for the seasonal campground? Will seasonal rental fees ever cover the cost of this infrastructure? Will taxpayers be on the hook for these infrastructure expenses?
Thank you. And the answer to that question is the previous council resolved to continue the operation of the campground with Orca as the operator. That council understood that their decision would result in the need for infrastructure improvements. The infrastructure improvements would be paid through the revenues collected by the township through the Orca agreement. So again, it would be paid back by the campground users. Can we have the next question, please?
Certainly. From Ed Plexney, will council consult with resident taxpayers on a proposed strategic plan and a 5-year and 20-year capital plan for developing the Lakefield Park campgrounds? If not, why not?
And the answer to that question is yes. This consultation, and it was very extensive and public, took place as part of the 2021 Lakefield Utilization Study preparation. May we have the next question, please?
Yep. Again, 2 similar questions were asked by Ed Plexney and Patty and Tom McAllister. Will funds be allocated in this plan for mitigation during development and site restoration for future decommissioning of the campgrounds?
And the answer is, as noted, the previous council endorsed the continued use of the property as a campground. There has been no direction to change this plan. Therefore, no decommissioning plan is in place. May we have the next question, please?
Next question is from Susan Twist. Could the approximate $28,000 earmarked for consultants be given to the Lakefield Trail Committee to make repairs to the boardwalk along the marsh, which is in need of repair?
And the answer to that question, and both our deputy mayor and Councillor Boyko would know that this land is owned by Orca. The next question, please.
Next question, again from Ed Plexney. If council approves capital infrastructure improvements for the Lakefield campground, can we expect to see a further rise in taxes and decline in services to Selwyn Township residents?
And the answer is campground infrastructure investments in bold would not be funded by raising taxes. Can we have the next question, please?
Yep. Again, similar questions from 3 folks, Ed Plexney, Patty and Tom McAllister, and Susan Twist. Sorry, I meant 4. Has there been or will there be an environmental impact assessment of the proposed campground development?
And the answer to that question is an environmental impact study is not required, as this is replacing existing water, sewer, and electrical services at the campground. Can we have the next question, please?
Sure. Again, Ed Plexney. Did council ask resident taxpayers if they prefer a public park or a campground at Hague Point? If not, then this should be done before proceeding with the capital investment in a campground. The last survey conducted in 2021 only asked what type of campground or camping activity we would like to see there. The most extensive consultation with residents of Lakefield was done in 1991 by the Ontario Association of Architects to develop a vision for growth that sustains the natural and cultural heritage that so many residents of the town value. Their report to the Village of Lakefield recommended that the campground should be removed and that this prime waterfront and environmentally sensitive area be maintained as public land.
And the answer to that is, for the first part, yes, residents were asked for their feedback. This was part of the 2021 utilization study. The study is posted online if anyone wants to refresh their memory on the findings. To answer the second part, there is a misconception that the 1991 cause report recommended removal of the campground. The report actually recommended the property be developed as a resort/hotel complex. The report did provide a summary of public comments. Some comments included using the lands for public use, while other comments noted that the campground was an asset. The public feedback comments have been misused to suggest that it was recommended that the campground be removed, when in fact the recommendation was to develop the property into a resort hotel. The next question, please.
Thank you. This is the last question. Again, similar questions asked by Ed Polexny and Patty and Tom McAllister. Has council considered the effect of the Lakefield South development on the demand for public parklands near water and within walking distance to this large-scale residential development? Clearly, most people will seek out the public beach and park land near the water as a key benefit for purchasing a residence. Some foresight now will reduce increased user conflicts at Hague Point by ensuring that there is a public park accessible to all.
And the answer to the last question is yes, parkland needs will be accounted for as part of the development of the Lakefield South development area. For example, there will be an appropriate amount of parkland. The public beach, trail, and perimeter surrounding the campground are to be maintained as public park spaces. That's the end of the questions that came in prior to our meeting. And I believe we've used up the 15 minutes that were allotted. So we will now go on to the municipal officers and staff reports. And the first one is going to be dealt with by our CAO, Janice Laval. Janice.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a meeting where our first quarter work plan updates are provided to council. So each manager has provided their work plan for your review and are mostly here to accept any questions. Sarah and Gord were both not able to attend, so the rest of us will help to fill in any blanks for them if need be, or take questions away and come back with answers.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to do this by department. And if any member of council has something you want to pull by department, let me know. And the questions can be asked. So we'll start with the Chief Administrative Officer report. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled for that? Seeing none, we'll go on to the Building and Planning Department. And there are some accessory reports that go with that. Is there anything that anyone wants pulled? I actually have a question, Robert. When do you think we're going to get our official plan back?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we can't get even any kind of indication from the province, so at this time, we unfortunately don't have any idea.
All right. It's not good. I have a question from the Deputy Mayor Black.
Through you, Mayor Senes, Robert. Obviously, the numbers in the first quarter aren't looking very promising year over year. Are we seeing with the spring weather a little early, bank rates hopefully coming down? Are we seeing more people on the door for permits?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, we are having more inquiries, so there are signs that we may see some activity come back, but you know, the lead time for a lot of projects is, or even just a simple building permit sometimes can be 6 months or more. So we are optimistic that by third quarter we'll see some sort of better numbers and possibly even so.
Have you had a chance to chat to any of the neighboring municipalities? Are they all experience the same issues, percentage wise or total?
Yeah. So at the most recent Ontario Building Officials Association meeting that I attended, I have heard that a few of our other municipalities are seeing an uptick in their permit activity, and yeah, overall, I think we've sort of across the county experienced a similar drop in activity. So it's good to hear that some of our peers are starting to see some of that activity return. And again, we've started having more inquiries, so things are looking like they'll get better.
Okay, here's hoping the interest rates go down and it spurs some people to start doing some work. Our next is the Corporate and Community Service / Clerks Department. Any questions? I've got a couple. How are we doing with the lease agreements with Bridge Street?
So we don't have any formal lease agreements in place. We definitely have interest in the space. I think council will know that we're toying with some potential other uses for the location as well. So we just want to be mindful that we don't enter into sort of a lease agreement that may impact sort of our own needs for the space as well. We are doing a survey with the community and stakeholders to get some sense from the community about how how they would like to see the space used, whether it's for more of a long-term tenant or our initial idea of the business incubator and sort of the shorter term uses where somebody who's like a business startup could come in and use it for a short term on a short-term basis. So we're still collecting some of that information.
Okay, and I actually have another question with regards to the TSW on the possible opportunities for expanded docking at the Workshard, the blue building. Can you give us an update on that?
Yes, we continue to knock on their door every couple of months, and we've told them we're very interested in entering into an agreement to use the wall for additional docking. I've been told that they're working on it and Realty is working on an agreement, but I haven't seen it yet. So anyway, it's on my my knock list for next week again.
Okay, you've got a big long list. One other thing, and I'd like to ask Lily. We have the second group of the food cyclers that have been offered out. I know there was a long waiting list. How many do we have left out of the 250 that of the second round?
Yes, so as of this morning, we have about 95 units left.
Okay, promoting those still. I know everyone that has one is really tickled pink with them.
Yes, through you. We've only received positive feedback on the food cyclers. It's been really positive, and we are promoting them in our newsletter. It'll go in the Lakefield Herald as well and on social media.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next department, Financial Services. Are there any questions? Seeing none. The Fire Department. I have a question from Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you. Through Mayor Sennis, Chief's not here today, but wondering if staff maybe can comment. I mean, the statistics are interesting. Only about 3% of the calls are fire calls, and obviously it's the medical calls are what's taking up the majority of the costs and budget for that department. And we've got a new agreement. I understand that's been implemented a month or so ago.
We have, the agreement is in place, but they are working towards implementation at the ambulance communication center. So it hasn't actually
Okay.
become active yet, but hopefully as soon as it does, that will really reduce the number of medical calls that we get dispatched to.
Okay, no, I wanted an update on
Yep.
whether that was being put in place yet or.
Yeah, it just takes some time for them to work it through their process on
Training,
the other
yeah.
end.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll move on to Human Resources. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on now to Library Services. Any questions there? You're letting staff off easy here, council. Parks and Rec. I have a question from Councillor Koulis.
Through you, Mike, can you give an update on potential dates for the easy access docks and the kayak system? Like when that might actually be in working order for people to use?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, we can't right now. The tender closed today for the one in Isabel Morris Park. We have worked with another vendor to make sure the other one is secured, but we're still at the mercy of permits. So we're working through those and we hope to have everything in by the start of summer, so mid to late June. I think that's what one of the tenders put down as their timeline, but permits are obviously essential. So
Okay, thank you.
And you know that when we get them in, that the minister wants to come back for a kayak ride with me. I have a fan. And he's married apparently, so there you go. Anyways. All right, so Public Works, is there anything that anyone has questions on? We have Councillor Boyko.
Sorry, I'm still smiling at you. Last time. I've a two-pronged question. One, I think for Adam, and one, I think for Elaine. And it's about the transition of the water and sewer in Lakefield with respect to operations and with respect to the finance and taking over the billing. And I know there was some hiccups in the billing and so I wonder if you could comment on both of those and basically update us on how the transition is going.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Madam Mayor. I can speak to the first bit a little bit just to give you an update. I think we brought a report back to council updating as well. So we are in the recruitment stage right now. So we're recruiting for a supervisor, and the water and sewer operators positions are posted right now. So we're looking to transition and start staff, or I mean, it depends on that process, but we're really hopeful we'd have staff available in May and to kind of prolong that overlap with facilities by a month or 2 months, kind of overlap that transition. So yep, no, things are coming along. We're in the process of building the Lakefield water and sewer budget now, which will be coming back to council in May.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I can speak to the building transition. So, yeah, I think as we reported last time in Adam's report that came, we were pleased with the assistance that we received from our billing agent, PUG. We now have Rain Dow on site, and she has been working with Erica. We're really pleased with the amount of uptake for pre-authorized payment that we received from, and a lot of folks just prefer to pay online as well. We did notice a big uptake in customers at the front counter. And I think that was evident for all the customer service team, I think. So there's definitely more activity, especially at the very start with the customer service. We have a lot of folks still dropping off forms for pre-authorized payments and different things like that. So that aspect's going really well. We're working through this week. This will be our first round of the reminder notices going out. And then start to work a little bit more closely with some of our folks that have maybe higher balances or things like that. And of course, they would be, this would be the first time as well working through the issue of tax rolling and things like that. So we're still kind of working through that process. I can say that Eric and I haven't really had a chance this week to talk very much because she's quite busy with that and with Rain. But yeah, that's really what we'll be working through this month of April for sure. But still quite pleased with how the process is going.
It's great. Thank you. I'm glad it's going well. Thank you.
So we need someone to move the recommendation to receive these reports. Deputy Mayor Black and Councillor Kula seconding. Oh, you have a comment?
Sorry, we didn't hit the last item, which was the report card.
Oh,
And I just want to say how pleased I am with the report card. The presentation is very easy to read. It's you can get through the information quickly. It provides a lot of good information about the township. So I think that's so the question is, how is that shared? Are there hard copies available for those that aren't on the internet, those sorts of things?
Yeah, we don't actually produce a hard copy, but we can certainly provide a hard copy for anybody that wants it. Or if any council members do want a hard copy to hand out, we can give you a supply as well. And yeah, we definitely share it through social media and post it on the website.
thank you. Thank you for catching that. So we will now. Did I get a mover and a seconder?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We are now just 1 minute before the time of the public meeting. And so I will now ask Per if he will, is Per going to be doing the public meeting? All right, I'll ask the planner to announce the purpose of the meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Township of Selwyn is holding a public meeting today to consider one application to amend the zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act. The prescribed notice of public meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 120-meter radius of the property subject to the application, as well as by a sign posted on the property. The notice was provided via email to the prescribed ministries and agencies. The notice is also available on the township's website. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Selwyn before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Nor can a person or public body be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Are we on time? Should I start in?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so this zoning amendment is for 2027 Preston Road, Kawartha Land Tribunal, or Kawartha Land Tribunal, Kawartha Land Trust is the proponent in this case. What they're looking to do is operate a small summer day camp on the site. The specific details are that it would be operated for 65 days a year. During the summer months, a maximum of 20 participants between the ages of 4 and 12 years old with 4 adult supervisors. The purpose of the camp is to provide a land-based learning and play opportunity in an outdoor setting. And there's no new infrastructure proposed or buildings. They'll strictly utilize the existing facilities on the site, including a parking area, driveway, existing shelter. A small portable outhouse may be located on the site to support this day camp. So the rural zone doesn't currently our regular permitted uses under the rural zone, which the applicable to the subject property does not permit this kind of a small scale operation, commercial operation. So the zoning amendment is site specific to permit this new use. So we're just adding that to the list of permitted uses under the rural zone through a special exception zoning. The environmental protection zoning around a wetland on the site will remain in place as unchanged. I find that as per my report that the development proposal conforms to the official plan as well as the growth plan for the Great Golden Horseshoe and is consistent with the provincial planning. Sorry, we're still waiting on the release of the new provincial planning statement. I'm using that terminology. The current one in effect is the provincial policy statement. We have comments from the County Peterborough Public Works Department and Enbridge, both having no concern. And I recommend that this zoning amendment be approved. And those are my comments.
Thank you very much. And I have to ask the clerk, was there anyone that had registered that was for or against this application?
No.
Right, thank you. I will bring it to Council for questions. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Blah.
Thank you through you, Mayor Stennis. Thanks for the report.
Sorry, apparently somebody is online.
Oh,
I didn't realize that. I apologize.
okay. Can I have the name of the person and the address?
Melissa Rose. And she's a neighbor. I'm not sure her address.
Okay.
Hi.
Hello?
Hi, so I'm Melissa. I've never participated in a meeting like this before, especially on Zoom. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to just ask a few questions. My property is a parcel to the south. And it's 2197, I believe, Miller Road. My questions were around, so the age group for the camp is fairly large. I believe it was like 4 to 12 or something like that. I read it a while ago, but I don't know. My biggest concern, I guess, is children wander. And I would think that the younger children would need like a higher ratio. of adults to campers. I don't know anything about legislation or anything around that. But as a adjacent property owner, I'm just wondering about like insurance for me if, if campers wander onto, like if campers happen to like wander away from that site and get onto adjacent properties. It is quite wet there. There's areas where it's quite steep. There's areas where there's a lot of like forested areas. And even though it's, only 40, 50 acres, I guess that's my concern. And that's something that I'd have to look into, but is the liability to me as a property owner being adjacent to a day camp?
All right, and may I have your actual address, Miss Rose?
I'm sorry, I think it's 2197 Miller Road, and I think that's awful. I own 2197 and I also own 2198. So I think it's 2197.
Okay, thank you. And Pierre, would you like to weigh in here?
Sure. So in response through you, your worship. So the particulars of day camp operation are not regulated by our zoning bylaw, but I would suggest if Thomas would like to say a few words as the campground operator, he may be able to address that specific concern. Would you mind speaking to that point?
If you can go to the mic over there, and if you can please identify yourself and actually give us your address too, sir.
Sure. Thanks for your question. Was it Melissa? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And I guess we're neighbors, so nice to meet you. I'm Tom Unruh. I'm the Director of Community Conservation at the Kawartha Land Trust, so the owner of the land making this application. Or I represent rather the owner of the land making this application. And your question is a good one. And like, we own land around the Kawarthas and really take seriously our responsibility as neighbors and try to be good neighbors as much as possible. I have I can't give you legal advice related to your requirement for insurance as an adjacent landowner. But I can say that the Trespass to Property Act does protect landowners from people wandering onto their property and getting injured, and that is a very clear piece of legislation with regards to your protection. So again, not a lawyer, but my perception as a person who manages thousands of acres of land is that we are in a limited position of liability to those kinds of wandering on and getting hurt issues. And, as I said, we're really happy to work with neighbors. And if, maybe signing the boundary a little bit would make you a little bit more comfortable working together on, establishing that boundary. I'm happy to do that. But I'll also just sort of go back to, it's actually a partner organization, Compass Early Learning and Care, that will operate the day camp. And they have, really, really solid reputation in terms of, following best practices when working with the children, really, really, take seriously the responsibility of care to the kids. So my kids were with them a few years ago, and I don't think my kids were wandering off. I think they do a great job of keeping the kids engaged and being present with them. Does that help answer questions? And I can also provide my contact information if you'd like to chat about this further somewhere.
It does. Yeah, it answers my question, and I'll probably come over at some point and introduce myself.
That's great. I actually just live down the road from you as well at 2116 Miller Road. So if you ever want to come down, I'm your neighbor as a Kawartha Land Trust and as a real person.
Real person.
All right. And the only other question I had is if it's if the amendment or is approved, does it automatically give the option, I suppose, to the trust to expand to an overnight camp in the future? Or would that require something else?
Yeah, so through your worship, and certainly Thomas can weigh in on this too. So the provision, we're not specifically, the zoning bylaw doesn't typically dictate operating hours. Now, having said that, if they were going to convert to an overnight operation, there'd be buildings needed,
Okay.
facilities. Those facilities would be subject to what's called site plan control. And that requires an agreement with the township in regard to the facilities to be provided. So there would be some regulation with regard to the buildings and making sure that the appropriate facilities are constructed on the site in support of that type of an operation.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
that
thank you.
sufficient?
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
If
And
I-
before we get to that, if you can stay at the mic, because I'm going to have a question from a counselor, but I understand that the applicant is also online, John Kintair. Is that so?
The agent actually isn't online.
Isn't? Okay, so we have no one else, is what you're saying. That's right. All right, thank you. Just wanted to make, all right, so we'll bring it to council, and I have a question from Councillor Boyko.
It's not so much a question, Madam Mayor, but an answer to Melissa's question. Ma'am, I'm John Boyd. You can't see me. Maybe you can. I don't know. I'm John Boyd, Lakefield Ward Councillor. And in another life, I was the day camp coordinator in the city of Peterborough Parks. And then in another life subsequent to that, I was the summer director of summer programs at Lakefield College School, overseeing a number of camps that were there at the school. So I can tell you that there are laws and regulations that state for not only overnight camps, but for day camps, how many kids per counselor there must be.
Right.
And it's also very strict regulations about the overseeing and supervision of kids and adults, for that matter, at camps. And there are also emergency processes that must be in place if a child, as you say, wanders off or for whatever reason can't be seen by a counselor. As soon as visually can't be seen, a number of emergency protocols that must be in place immediately come into play. So I don't know if that alleviates some of your concern, but at least to let you know that once this camp begins, that all of those procedures and regulations will automatically be there. They have to be there. So that doesn't mean that there's not an accident from time to time, but at least all of those processes must be there. So therefore they will be there.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Deputy Mayor Black.
Through you, Mayor Senes, thank you. There's not a great picture of the actual property and the parking area. And I know there's up to 20 children and 4 adults that are going to be working there, 4 or 5 adults. I know the kids aren't going to be leaving cars there, but their parents will be coming and going. Is there adequate parking on site? Because certainly you wouldn't want people parking on the shoulder of Preston. Is there enough parking there?
Yeah.
So through your worship, so at pre-consultation, we discussed this component. It's a fairly lengthy driveway that goes to the sort of the center of the property where the existing residence is located. Our understanding is that the current operation, it's proposed that it be mostly kids being bussed in. And Tom, you can comment on that, if just confirm that. And so like it would be more like nobody's really parking. It's like a drop-off operation, and then and then pick up at the end of the day, right? Okay. So there won't be necessarily a great need for parking during the course of the day, other than staff.
Yeah, and sorry, just to jump in as a point of clarification, that on the higher number or end of that number range, like the 20, that's when there would be the busing in, and it's I think it's about 10 students that would be there on a regular basis that would be receiving drop off from their parents. So it is a smaller number. And, in our experience of operating the site for a few years, when we have events where a number of cars show up, up to 20 cars can be in there at any given time without causing, overflow onto the road and whatnot.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, Councillor? Yeah, Brian Henry.
Thank you to Mayor Senes. Is this on Preston Road? Is this in relation to the Compass Timber Nook operation that was there?
Correct, yeah.
And this would be on the opposite side, the west side of the road then now?
That is the site. So we found out through an application for a permit to a composting toilet to be installed on the site that we weren't actually zoned appropriately for that day camp use. And so this is sort of fixing that problem that was found out. So yeah, it's the exact same site that Timbernook Camp was on for 3 years, I believe, possibly 2.
Follow up?
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. I live up in that neck of the woods. My wife worked with Compass for years and is now one of the outdoor advocate for Peterborough County. I've driven by the original site with Timbernook there for the past 3 years and basically had no idea you were there. I actually had to stop and pull in one day to check the signage on it. It's so nondescript and it's such a natural environment. You've done a great job of preserving it. I wish you success in the future with doing this.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So seeing no further questions, I'm looking for motion to Councillor Henry is going to move the recommendation and Councillor Boyka will second it. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great.
All right. We have consent items. Is there anything anyone wants pulled?
Sorry, there's just the financial
Oh, I'm
report.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm rushing things here. I'm sorry, Lane. We do have the Manager of Financial Services with the first quarter financial report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, being the first quarter report, I've provided some additional comments in the cover report, but it's probably the biggest comment and some of the questions I get every year is when we look at the summary area for services hired or overhead, they look higher than they should at the first quarter. But in most instances, that's because of the fact that the insurance premium has been paid and it's for the whole year. So that's noted in the cover report. A few other bits of narrative there on the winter activities, the roads fleet, where we've incurred some unexpected repair bills, and the fact that arena operations ice is now out, came out Easter weekend, and Mike and his staff are already receiving some interest in dry floor rentals there.
That's good. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I need someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Koulis is moving it and Councillor Henry will second it. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll go to the consent items. Is there anything anyone wants pulled here? Seeing none, I need someone to move all of the items on consent. Councillor Koulis, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And we will now move to the other new and unfinished business. Councillor Boyka.
Thank you. Before I get to the notice of motion, I'd just like to announce that at 4 o'clock in this room, there will be a meeting of the Peterborough Police Board. Last month, they met, the Peterborough Police Board. I serve as the Lakefield liaison on the board, and we met in Cavan, and this month we're meeting here because of the service that the Peterborough Police provides in Lakefield.
And that meeting starts at what time?
It starts at 4 o'clock in this room.
And the public is welcome.
Absolutely. Anyone is welcome to attend. So the second thing is the notice of motion, which you all have before you. I don't know if it's necessary for me to read the motion for those who may be watching on YouTube. It's up to you, Madam Mayor, if you want me to. It's a lengthy motion. I can read it if you wish, but I can certainly speak to it just very, very briefly. I come to the motion from a position of respect and humility, I guess I could say, in that I respect all of the work that the last council did in setting up the consultation process, and they did that process through the pandemic, which made special challenges, and they carried through with the process despite the fact that it caused a lot of consternation in the community, and the air was smudged with rumors and innuendo and a lot of misinformation. And so I have a lot of respect for not only the council, but the staff who saw that process through. I have a lot of respect for the staff, as always. I've expressed that many times for the staff professionalism. And what happened with this March 26th meeting is, of course, the line item in the Parks and Recreation budget with 0 added to it was brought forth as a placeholder in part of the budget process. And we were told that at that time, when we knew that number, then we could discuss going forward with it at that point. Well, we're now at that point, so we're discussing it. I come to this motion too with humility, because all of us on council, not just me, all of us on council spend almost all of our time either listening or reading or asking questions, all to serve the same end. We're seeking to understand. And so that's what this motion is all about, seeking from a position of humility to understand. We've established that the campground is a business. It is a business, and therefore we must think of it as a business. And Lane gave us an answer to one of the questions, some of the numbers that are currently there. But as a business going forward, like any business that would be going forward with an infrastructure program that is going to commit us to 40 years or so, and any business that is asking for a large loan, and we have an estimate of approximately how much that loan will be, would be asking for a business plan to move forward. So before going forward with $28,000 to give us a more precise number, but we have the estimate of the number already, perhaps we should pause and look at the business plan to see if we should move forward even with spending this $28,000. Because as I reread over the last month or so, all of the documents and the report that the consultant delivered, I watched the 3-hour public meeting with the consultant reporting and all of the discussion that came online from all the people. And then it was mentioned then, and it was mentioned in the Orca agreement again, that Area 3, I use this as just an example, Area 3 of the campground, which is an area of about 47 trailers that is on the marsh side, is going to be transitioned out. Well, how quickly do we expect that to happen? Because if we use today's numbers, all of those trailers with winter storage is about $192,000 that is going to be transitioned out. And another campsite at the end, a trailer site at the end of Area 1 is going to be transitioned out. So if we add all of that up, it's close to $200,000 of revenue that will not be coming in. Some of that revenue will be replaced with tents. But no one is going to put a tent like they put a trailer in May and leave it there till October and then pay winter storage on their tent. So therefore, there's going to be a change in the revenue going forward. Well, we should know that going in. So therefore, when the council was asked to approve the $28,000, I saw it as an opportunity to pause, use the estimate that we have of what the infrastructure program will cost, and therefore the estimate that we can make going forward with the carrying costs of not only that loan, but there's 2 other loans that we're carrying right now, one for equipment and one for the docks. And so can we therefore, I'm not going to speak to the motion directly, get a business plan? Let us see the strategic and financial objectives given, as I said, as the example, Area 3 coming out. What are the revenues going forward, given the loan, given the transition out? Because the only reason that we are keeping this campground as a campground is for the money that it is bringing us. It is a business. Let's look at it as a business. No business would go to a bank and say, we want $1 million loan, but we're not giving you a business plan. Therefore, what is the business plan? I can, if you wish, read the motion, but that's my comment.
No, I was waiting for you to take a breath and you didn't. So it doesn't show here there's a seconder, and I just wanted to make sure that, okay, so Deputy Mayor Black is seconding it. I'm sorry, Councillor Boyko, are you finished? Yes. I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, dear Mayor Senes. Appreciate that. I am seconding the motion, and I certainly echo Councillor Boyko's comments around staff and everything that previous councils have done. This has been a very, very challenging topic in the municipality, very divisive in some ways, but you know, I think there's a fiduciary responsibility here of council. And I know under the process that was provided, there would be that opportunity down the road, but I think there's a lot of things that have happened in the campground. We received some new financial information today on 2023 revenues, which are substantially higher than anything we've received for the last 20 years. So I'm not sure how that was achieved, whether it was higher rates or whether there was money left on the table in the past. I don't know those numbers. We haven't really been given anything official other than some numbers that we received through email and today. So, you know, it is a business, and as Councillor Boyko says, any business that would need $1 million to any of our local trailer parks, campgrounds, that if they went to the bank for $1 million to put infrastructure in, the seat wouldn't get very warm if they didn't have a business plan to present to the bank manager. So it's really no different here. Investment in this business, and as Councillor Boyko says, there's a number of changes already being proposed or projected into the campground, and how does that affect the income, and will that income be enough to support, you know, if we're saying it's a $7 million debenture, that's about $90,000 a year in principal and interest. So it's a significant number. You know, and given that the township and Lakefield residents in particular are giving up one of the most environmentally sensitive pieces of parkland in the township to operate a business, I believe that any profits that's derived from it should be put in back into the Parks and Recreation Reserve. So there is money there. If we're giving up a piece of property, we should have money in return to help develop other parklands. And as Lakefield South comes along, there'll be certainly a need to help develop additional parkland for that. So I fully support the minimum $50,000 a year going into the Parks Reserve. Over the 40-year life, that'll add $2 million to the Parks Reserve, which will go a long way in supporting our parks infrastructure down the road. So I think it's been said that, you know, those fees, those costs should be borne by the users in this situation. And I fully support the need for a business plan. If we're going to invest 7 figures, the business plan is really going to be necessary to provide enough financial information on the financial impact of paying for this infrastructure. Will a new cost affect the long-term marketing and competitiveness of the campground? We are in a we're competing with businesses in our community. And we need to know that long-term that we're going to stay competitive. 10 years down the road, if we're not competitive, we're stuck with the infrastructure bill on the tax levy at that point, because there won't be any income if it does fail. So I think it's important to refresh that information. I know we've had some consultants in the past through the last round, but I think it's important to refresh that information to ensure that taxpayers will not be on the hook to pay the debt down the road. I support deferring the decision on moving forward with any costs associated with it until we have more information to council. The argument that we need a fresh number, I don't believe that's really needed. I think DM Wills provided an estimate 2-3 years ago. There are construction exchanges that will tell you what the change in those costing would have been over the last 3 years. Add 20% of the number. We just need a ballpark estimate on whether the campground can carry this debt, and that we can ensure that on top of covering the debt and operating costs, that we have money every year going into the Parks Reserve to compensate residents for the loss of that parkland and the township's decision to make it a business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone that would like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. So those in favor? Those opposed? That motion is lost. And we will now, I guess, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. I can definitely echo the words of Deputy Mayor Ron Black and Councillor Boyko with regards to the experience that the township staff went through and previous council went through couple of years ago. But they did do all the heavy lifting on this. They've done all the legwork on it. I think at this point, we're getting to, we're pretty much going to see death by committee because everyone wants to put their fingerprint on this. And I don't see it ever moving forward. And at this pace, we're going to be spending more money on it than what this $28,000 study will be. The impact of businesses within Lakefield. It's already generating revenues and we're like, wow, that's amazing. It's doing so great. Yeah, we want to micromanage it. Of course, moving forward, we're going to be reviewing every step of the way, as will future councils. So I'm pretty certain that every time that this issue comes up regarding the Lakefield campground, we are going to have lots of public consultation, lots of response from the public. I think it's time that we move forward on this. And as such, I'd like to bring forward a motion to reconsider the original recommendation as outlined in the report presented by Mike Richardson at the March 26, 2024 council meeting regarding the Lakefield campground infrastructure project.
Okay, you've made a motion to reconsider the original staff report. Do I have a seconder on that? Yep. Seconded by Councillor Koulis. And so is there an opportunity to show what that staff report was? Because I don't have it in front of
We
me.
can do that, but we first need to deal with the motion to reconsider.
Okay,
So-
so, all right. So I'll call the vote on the reconsideration. All those in favor?
We have a
Could-
recorded vote, please.
And could I have a question first, a comment before we
Sure.
move directly to? So this is a motion to reconsider the $28,000 in order to move forward that Mike
Yes.
brought forward last time. Okay.
Yep.
Once that report comes back, 'cause that will be a report. I just want to understand what we're voting on. So the report will come back and it will say from DM Wells, here is the engineering study that says, here's what you need in terms of the infrastructure for electric, water and sewer. And it will go out to tender, and then that tender process will continue, and then it will come back and say, and here is the actual cost to implement it. And we have chosen this firm to carry forward. Is that what we're saying? I just want to know
Well-
what exactly we're agreeing to.
Yeah, I think you're getting a little ahead here.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. What exactly are we
Okay.
voting on?
So at the last meeting.
Yeah.
The staff report that was brought forward, there was no action taken on it because the motion lost. So Councillor Henry has brought forward a motion to reconsider that recommendation that's currently on the screen. So
Right.
council needs to deal with the motion to reconsider first.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so
not
we're gonna
that,
vote
not
whether
that
we're
yet, not that yet.
Motion.
So let's just deal with the motion to reconsider first.
Okay. So
Yeah.
shall we
So-
reconsider?
And then we will.
That's
if-
precisely my question. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and honestly, Councillor Boyko, I thought that I would have to see what I'm reconsidering, so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
I kind of put the cart before the horse too.
Okay.
All right, motion to reconsider, moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Koulis. You asked for recorded vote, please. Clerk.
Councillor Koulis?
Support.
Yes?
Yep.
That's right. Councillor Henry?
Yes.
Mayor Senes?
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Black?
No.
And Councillor Boyko?
No.
The motion to reconsider is carried. So
so what we are going to vote on now that we can reconsider it is the original staff
correct,
recommendation.
which is on the screen.
Should this be read out loud for those online or?
I can read it if you want.
Please.
I'll try here. That the report of the manager of recreation services related to the 2024 capital project amendment for the Lakefield campground infrastructure upgrade be received for information, and that the township engage DM Wales Associates to finalize the design and tendering of the Lakefield campground infrastructure project at a cost of $28,303.75 exclusive of HST, and that a budget amendment be prepared and presented to council at a later date to accommodate the cost of these services to be financed internally through the revenue the township will receive through its agreement with Orca for the operation of the campground.
right, so I don't know if anyone wants to speak to it. I personally believe we need to know what it's going to cost for this upgraded infrastructure that is in definite need of upgrading. And the only way we can do that is to go to tender. And once we get that information, we would bring it back to staff to let council know if it's approved, what options we have available that the campground users would repay it, because they're the ones that will be on the hook for it, not the taxpayer. So Deputy Mayor Black, you have a comment?
Thank you, through Mayor Senes. From a process point of view, I don't disagree with, the approach that's being taken. I just feel to spend another $28,000 before we even have a baseline understanding of the finances for the campground and whether they'd be able to support a 7-figure infrastructure is wasting money. I think we need something preliminary that will tell us we have an estimate already. You can go to the construction exchange and find out what the change in that number has been over the last 2 years. So we have a number. This idea that we don't have a number, I don't believe is accurate. We have a number we can work with that will give us the ballpark. Okay, are we in the game? If we're in the game, fine, let's move ahead and make those changes. But I don't have enough information at this point for me, in my fiduciary responsibility for this council, to spend another $30,000 just to get a number. We have a good idea what the number is going to be. So I don't support moving forward with it, with this motion again.
Thank you. And Councillor Boyko.
My question goes through you, Madam Mayor, to basically the question I was asking before, as we worked our way through the process here. When this number is established through this process, am I right that it will then come back to council for approval before a shovel goes in the ground? The way it worded there, the budget amendment will be prepared and presented to council at a later date. But down further, it says that we're going to begin this project in October. So will it come back to council and say, we've done this, and therefore it's going to cost X, and then council approves proceeding with the infrastructure improvement?
Yes. So
That's the process?
that's the process. So this
Okay.
will allow us to move forward to issue the tender.
Yeah.
That's for the expense for the tender preparation. The
Yeah.
tender comes back to council with the actual costs. And then there will be a financial plan, and then council can make the decision to move forward based on the tender results.
Perfect. Well, I think that being said, if I can, Madam Mayor, that perhaps we can have another discussion then about the kinds of things that I was looking for in the motion that was defeated at that time. Could I ask one more question? And that is, how long are we predicting that that DM Wills will take to do this? Is it a matter of weeks or months? When do we expect this back in a ballpark?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, we did have to put it on pause for
Yeah.
a couple of weeks. So I had been working with DM Wells prior to that, and I can update council very soon. But the hopes would be that it could be out within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then back in fairness, because one of the things is your question about the October date. We can't give you a number if they don't know when they're doing construction, because that's a huge part of how they bid and when they bid. And one of the things that we'd hoped was that we'd get out early in the year so we would have more competitive pricing. We may have missed that window, which is unfortunate. But now we're looking at June would be, or sorry, May would be really, really good. June would be acceptable so that we could, because we have to do a fall construction, whatever that year is, if it's to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, I will now ask for the vote.
Sorry, we need someone to move and second it.
Oh, we haven't had it moved and seconded. Yeah, all right. So do I have someone to move the Counselor Henry will move the recommendation. Counselor Coolus will second it. And I would ask that the vote be recorded, please.
Sure. Counselor Henry,
Yes.
Mayor Senes,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Black,
No.
Counselor Boyko.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Thank you. Counselor Coolus,
Yes.
motion is carried.
All right, we'll move on. We have bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We just have one bylaw. It's the zoning bylaw amendment for the Preston Road public meeting we had earlier today.
I need someone to move that. Counselor Boyko moving it and Counselor Kula seconding it. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And confirming bylaw. Deputy Mayor Black and Counselor Coolus, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. And motion to adjourn. Counselor Henry and Counselor Coolus, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you.